My father was looking for a house. He saw this house and it was actually a resale. He was asking the real estate agent, why is it so cheap? And they said, oh, well, it's a good price right now, and they didn't really say much. And I had no clue about really ghosts or hauntings at the time, didn't really care much about it. And as we were living there, things started happening. When I first went in there, I felt weird. I just felt weird feelings. I felt like I was being watched, as if something was there. It was just an uneasy feeling in my stomach.
Everybody loves a good mystery, or do they? What if the mystery is a horror story, one that slowly unfolds before your very eyes? And what if it happens in a house that you're living in, but unable to move away from, because you're a powerless kid and you don't get to make those decisions? Hello, I'm Lawrence Chow. Today in Ghostly Encounters, we meet Patrick Cross. Patrick's a grown man now, but when he was still a boy in middle school, his family moved into a house in the suburbs of Toronto. Patrick says it was a house with a dark and buried secret. It's the 1950s. Patrick's family moves in, and he gets his first inkling that there is something mysterious about his new home. However, Patrick has no idea just how disturbing and how terrifying that mystery will prove to be.
The first things I noticed was just basically as if somebody's walking around inside the house. There was just the odd things, sounds, but, you know, as if somebody else was there, but I felt somebody was always watching me or listening. I didn't really know what it was because then I wasn't aware of much of the paranormal or the ghosts at the time. I just felt something was there. I'd hear screams in the house. I'd hear things in the basement being dragged. I would go down the stairs, yeah, but I only went down in the daytime. I didn't like going down there at night. I would try to find out where the sounds were coming from. And there'd just be at the far end of the very end of the room, in the basement, I could just hear scraping, just something as if it was being dragged across the floor. I would look and there would be nothing there. It was like a chest being dragged, or furniture, really heavy furniture, and there was nothing there, and I just couldn't figure it out. And then it would stop, and then there would be these sounds, like as if somebody was chopping with an axe, just chopping sounds, and it would echo in the room, but there was nothing there. Me being a kid, I was just starting to freak out, and we didn't know what was going on. And my father was a devout Christian, so he didn't really care too much what was happening at the time. And he said, oh yeah, the house is settling. That's his answer all the time. I just felt weird feelings, seeing things, sensing things. As things got worse, as things started happening in the house, I'd see images. I mostly saw the woman. She was an older lady and a daughter, who I thought, at the time, I probably thought was her daughter, and she would be screaming too. And she would just be appearing as if she was crying out. She'd be reaching out her hand, and I could see her hand just looked like it was bleeding, like there was blood all around it, but it wasn't defined. And from time to time, I would see a father figure or an image of a man, but he was always like moving away or backing away. And I started seeing a black image of a guy. The man it was more like, I felt like more of an evil presence. I was very uncomfortable. I would never like sitting in the basement or in the rec room, because you could just hear things walking around, moving around. My parents would be in denial. My mother knew there was things going on, but you know, my dad just said don't say anything and don't worry about it. So they always tried to cover it up. I'd go into the kitchen and I was gonna get something to eat from the fridge. And I grabbed a glass. I'd go into the kitchen and I was gonna get something to eat from the fridge. And I grabbed a glass out of the cupboard, opened the cupboard up. And there was just drips of this blood or this fluid coming off the cabinets. Just definitely started looking like blood. I didn't know where it was coming from. It was just like there was nothing, there was no source. There was nothing. I thought, well, maybe there was something on the cupboard or something. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't handle it, so that's it. I'm out of here, you know? I just didn't want to go back in the kitchen. I hated going to sleep at night because the covers on my bed would be pulling off and it was just freezing by the wall. It could be like 85 degrees out in the summer. It was just freezing. About a half an hour after I slept or started sleeping, I'd feel the covers were coming off me. Felt like something was there pulling off the covers. And it was just making me even colder. It was just like something freezing cold was touching me. So I look around, there was nobody there. The door was open, there was nobody in the room. I had night lights everywhere. I was just freaking out. I had to have lights somewhere, and I couldn't see anything, but it was just kept being pulled off. And the drapes started moving on their own, and then it would stop. It happened almost every second, third night, yeah. So I just kind of got used to it. Then I got heavier covers, and I would actually put rocks on my bed. That sounds stupid, but it's like, I didn't want the covers to go off, so I started putting it on, so like, they're not gonna take them off now. It did work. It didn't do anything after that, so. I think the worst thing for me as a kid was we had these wooden closets and, of course, the wooden doors. So I definitely closed the door when I went to bed. I'd wake up, probably in the middle of the night, the door was half open. I could see his little red eyes staring at me, you know, just, that's it. I just put my blanket over my head. I was just freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I got goosebumps, yeah. I got scared.
The young Patrick seems to experience the paranormal in almost every way. Smelling foul odors, seeing apparitions, feeling cold spots, and hearing dragging sounds. Our expert Dina Bain-Taylor tells us that violent poltergeist activity affects all the senses, and often it's linked with violent death. So what violence was in the history of Patrick's boyhood home? Could the cabinets that drip blood be another clue? They remind another of our experts, Patty Allen, of the legend of Bluebeard's keys. Keys he used to lock the room where he hid the butchered bodies of his murdered wives. Keys that dripped blood persistently until the murderer was exposed. Could the bloody cabinets mean something in the house is crying out to be heard? For Patrick, the secret is still buried. But as events escalate, he's determined to dig it up.
I was in my bedroom and I'd be listening to music and I'd come out and I'd hear there was music playing. I came in and the sound of the organ would start playing on its own. So I'd go up to the organ and start checking it out. Saying, well, where's the sound coming from? It's, you know, something's playing it. It's just, you can't just play an organ. And it was just bizarre. It was like, almost like just odd sounds, odd music notes. So it just freaked me right out. It sounded like funeral music for sure. And it was unplugged and I thought, that's it. That was just bizarre. How it can play on its own and make all these sounds. I freaked out. I thought it was just something out of the movies, you know. There was always sounds of a man and woman outside the window by the garden, by the tomato garden at night. So I could hear whispering and talking around the garden, and you'd hear like, it's in the tomatoes, it's in the tomatoes. So I'd freak out because my brother would hear it in his bedroom, and we go, we're not eating those tomatoes. Well, that's the first place I was drawn to that I thought, well, we should investigate and check it out. And I always had visions of something around there. I got brave one weekend and started digging on the garden side. Took us a couple hours and we finally dug about 3 or 4 feet. And then we noticed there was we hit a bag. I got brave one weekend and started digging on the garden side. Took us a couple hours and we finally dug about 3 or 4 feet. And then we noticed there was we hit a bag. And it was an old plastic bag. Probably used for wrapping construction or materials. There was a rope wrapped around it. And it was all red and bloody inside. We looked at it and we were just freaking out looking at this bag. I covered it all up, and I really didn't try to live with it, really. I didn't know what to do. At the time, it was just bizarre. I never told my parents because they thought we were crazy at the same time anyways. Because a lot of the things were going on, my dad always thought this is you're nuts and that's it, but he saw things too. So, I mean, you know, he couldn't, every time I told him that, he never acknowledged it, so I didn't want to tell him about the things in the side of the house. I did a lot of research into the area and found a lot of the history of what was going on at the time. And found out the family previous, who had lived there for a short time, for about 6 months, known as the Barrett family. The son was, I guess, dating this girl in the area. Parents wouldn't let him date the girl, and they didn't like this girl, so the son basically went a little crazy. Killed the girl and killed his parents and basically chopped up all the bodies around the house. And apparently did found the axe, so he went insane basically. I'm sure it happened in the basement, and that they were killed and they were put into the chest and dragged across the floor upstairs. In the 50s and 60s, you know, nobody really could disclose about things, or they kept things shut up about when people were killed or murdered and stuff like that, especially in houses. That was my first experience with ghosts, so feeling that there was something there and moving around and actually things happening, because when you're a kid, you just grow up and you think, you know, you're trying to do everything else a kid does, and then when you start seeing things going on, it makes you wonder for sure. I believe the house is still haunted. I don't want to go back there. But it's interesting because it's still going on. And I think 4 or 5 families have already lived there and had other experiences too with things going on. So I wouldn't want to go back there.
Patrick confronts his fear of the house by literally digging up its terrible secret. But he says that didn't stop the ghostly activity. Our experts tell us that could be because poltergeists grow stronger as people react to them, feeding off the negative energy of fear and anxiousness. An axe-murdering ghost would definitely thrive on a steady diet of terror. Poltergeists follow a pattern that is evident in Patrick's story. They start small, with events that might be taken as coincidence, like Patrick's feeling of being watched. If they don't get a reaction, the activity increases until they rouse enough fear to make them stronger. When Patrick's father shut his eyes and refused to react, he may have unwittingly encouraged a ghost to get worse. Patrick certainly believes it did get worse. Bad enough to make him happy he never had to return to the house after his family sold it.
I think I'm a stronger person, and I'm also, it opened up a lot of things facing my fears. So I became more, you know, not just sitting back and letting things happen, but going and finding out and investigating and facing things head on. So it was a good learning experience to face your fears.